Hello children, today I am going to discuss with you the continuity of life lesson. Without further ado, let's move into the lesson. During this lesson, we are going to discuss about the reproduction of the organisms. What is mean by reproduction? The reproduction is the life process that gives rise to a new generation from an existing generation. Simply, we can call it as the production of new organisms from pre-existing organisms. There are two ways of doing reproduction. They are sexual reproduction and asexual reproduction. We can take two examples to keep in mind the difference between the sexual and asexual reproduction. First one is production of new plantlets by the rose plant. It is the example for the asexual reproduction. The second one is the production of new babies by cat. It is the example for the sexual reproduction. Thinking about these two examples, we can compare these reproduction methods like this. For the asexual reproduction, it contributes only one parental organisms, but for the sexual reproduction, contribute two organisms. In the asexual reproduction, it gives rise to offsprings which are identical to the parental organisms. But in the sexual reproduction, they are non-identical to the parental organism as well as themselves. But in sexual reproduction, there is no production of gametes, but for the sexual reproduction, it produces gametes, that means ova and sperms. As the asexual reproduction doesn't produce gamete, it doesn't occur meiosis, but in the sexual reproduction, meiosis occur. They are the main differences between sexual and asexual reproduction. Let's move into the asexual reproduction first. There is asexual reproduction of plants, also known as vegetative propagation. There are two main ways of doing asexual reproduction or vegetative propagation of plants. They are natural vegetative propagation and artificial vegetative propagation. If the plant propagate new offsprings or plants produce new offsprings without involvement of human, it is called natural vegetative propagation. For the example for the natural vegetative propagation is by leaves, suckers, runners, bulbils, roots and underground stems. Example for the leaves that do in natural vegetative propagation is akkapana and kadupul. For the suckers, banana and pineapple. Runners, centella, that means gotukola and maharavana raula. For the bulbils, pineapple and jute. The roots that do the vegetative propagation is curry leaves, breadfruit and guava. There are several types of underground stems. They are rhizomes, comb, stem tubers and bulbs. For the example for the rhizomes are ginger and turmeric. For the comb, banana and taro yam. And for the stem tuber, potato. For the bulbs, they are leeks and onions. Then let's move into the artificial vegetative propagation. The artificial vegetative propagation means the production of new offsprings or new plants with the involvement of human. There are several ways of doing artificial vegetative propagation. They are rooting of stem cuttings, layering, grafting and tissue culture. The example for the rooting of stem cutting, rose, shoe flower, temple tree and exora. For the layering, there are two ways of doing layering. One is ground layering, other one is aerial layering. If the plant stem or plant twig is close to the ground, we can do ground layering. If the plant twig is far from the ground, we can do aerial layering. The examples for the plant that can do the ground layering is jasmine and lemon. The example for the aerial layering is pomegranate and lemon. As layering, grafting also has two ways. One is bud grafting, the other one is twig grafting. If the grafting means the connecting a twig or bud of a plant of a same or of a closely related species is known as grafting. When we are doing grafting, we have to introduce the part from another plant to a stalk. The part which are gained from the another plant is called scion. In first method, this bud is the scion. In second method, twig is the scion. The part which is attached to the root, attached to the soil, is called stalk. There are some characteristics in the stalk. You have to keep in mind the characteristic of stalk. You have to select the strong root system plant with the uniform growth, and the stalk should have to withstanding environmental changes and diseases. The characteristics of the scion is it should be a variety of good characteristic and should be free from the pest and diseases. The next method is tissue culture. Apart from other artificial vegetative propagation, this tissue culture is very because it needs sterilized environment and should have knowledge about the tissue culture. The steps of doing tissue culture is, first you have to take the vegetative part from the plant. That means a part of root, part of leaf or part of stem, and it should be introduced into the culture medium, and then it let into the develop into callus. That means it let into the rooting. And the next part is the separate the plantlets, and the last part is adapt to natural environment to grow further. After this artificial vegetative propagation methods, let's move into the sexual reproduction of plant. The structure of the sexual reproduction, the structure of the sexual reproduction of plant is the flower. There are four main parts in the flower. One is calyx, the other one is corolla, the other one is androecium, the last one is gynosium. You can see the main parts of the flower in this figure. As you can see in this figure, the androecium consists, androecium also known as stamen, it consists anther and filament. And the gynosium, it is called as pistil, it consists three parts: stigma, style and ovary. They are the main parts of the flower. Then let's move into there are unisexual flowers and bisexual flowers. If the flower consists one sex, that means if the flower consists androecium or gynosium, one part androecium or gynosium, it is called unisexual flower. If the plant consists both sex, that means both androecium and gynosium consist in same flower, it is called bisexual. The example for the bisexual flowers are shoe flower, passion fruit, chili and katurumurunga. For the unisexual flowers, you can see pumpkin or corn. It consists androecium and gynosium in separate flowers. Then there is other terms you have to learn. It is monoecious plant and dioecious plant. The monoecious plant means if the plant consists both pistillate flowers and staminate flowers. That means pistillate flower means if the flower consists gynosium, it is called pistillate flower. If the flower consists androecium, it is called staminate flower. The plant which contain or which consist both staminate flowers and pistillate flower in same plant, it is called monoecious plant. Example for the monoecious plant is pumpkin, corn, coconut, bitter gourd. You can see in a bitter gourd or pumpkin plant, both pistillate flowers and staminate flowers can be seen in same plant. The dioecious mean if the plant consists only pistillate flower or only staminate flower, it is called dioecious. That means the pistillate flowers consist in separate plant and the staminate flowers are consist in separate plant. They are called dioecious. Like they are living in the two homes. Right? Example for the dioecious plant are papaya and Vallisneria. Then let's move into the next term. It is self-pollination and cross-pollination. This is so much important. Before moving to the self-pollination and cross-pollination, let's get to know what is the pollination. As I mentioned earlier, the sexual reproductive part of the plant is the flower. To do sexual reproduction, plant should have to do pollination. The pollination means the process of depositing matured pollen of a flower on the stigma of the flower or of the same species. It is so much important. It should be deposited in the same species flower. Pollen should be deposited on the same species flower. There are two ways of doing pollination. One is self-pollination. The other one is cross-pollination. If the pollens fall on the stigma of the same flower, it is called self-pollination. If the pollens are deposited in the separate another flower of same species, it is called cross-pollination. The plants are more favored to do cross-pollination because it may cause the variation or produce new variations of plants, varieties of plants when doing cross-pollination. So plants are more favorable to doing cross-pollination. So the plants try to avoid self-pollination. To avoid self-pollination, the plants have some adaptations. One is having unisexual flowers. Example for the unisexual flower, coconut and corn. That means the flower consists only one sex. That means if it is consist androecium or gynoecium in one flower. And the second one is self-sterility. Example for the plant that having self-sterility is passion fruit. The next one is hercogamy. Example for the hercogamy, orchid. The next one, dichogamy. Corn and tridax are the plants that having dichogamy. The next one is having extrose stamen. Having extrose stamen. Having extrose stamen is the other example. Other way of other adaptation of preventing self-pollination. Right, pin and jasmine are the example of having extrose stamens. Then let's see what are the agents of pollination. What are the agents of pollination? There are three agents of pollination. One is animal, by wind and by water. If the plant do pollination by animals, it is called supilous plant. And if the pollination is done by wind, it is called aeropilous plant. If the pollination is done by water, it is called hydropilous plant. You have to know what are the adaptations of these plants, these flowers. If the pollination is done by animals, their flowers has fragrance and they are colorful and have large flowers and attractive colorful petals and have been nectaries, and also the pollens are sticky. And the aeropilous plants have adaptation. The flowers are born at apex and there are large amount of pollens are produced in the flower, and also small and light pollens, and stigma also branch, and also these flowers has branch stigmas. And the hydropilus flowers has some adaptations. These flowers are, when these flowers are matured, they are detached from the plant and they can float on the water to reach into the gynosium flower or androsium flower. And the next subtopic is process of after pollination. After pollination, there are some changes happen in the flower. When after pollination, just after pollination, the pollen grains develops a pollen tube towards the ovary to fertilize the eggs. After fertilizing eggs, this egg and pollen is made a zygote and it develop into the embryo. This embryo are finally can be grow into the seedling, right? The petals are worn out and this ovary is converted into the fruit, and the ovules or eggs converted into the seed, and coat of or cover of the seed is converted into testa or seed coat, and the cover of the or wall of the ovary converted into the pericarp of the fruit. Sometimes the sepals are not worn out. For example, brinjols, chili, mangosteen, they after the fruit is grown, the sepals can be seen in that fruits because they are not worn out. With this topic, we have to learn the parthenogenesis also. The parthenogenesis means the process of developing fruit without fertilization. If the fertilization is occur, the fruits consist seed. But in parthenogenesis, if the parthenogenesis happen, that fruits doesn't consist seed. For example, banana, pineapple, some oranges, grapes also do parthenogenesis. After forming fruits and seeds by pollination, the plants should have to disperse away from the mother plant, because if the seeds are fallen near the mother plants, it may cause more competition between offsprings for the limited resources. So the plants have to disperse them away from the mother plant. There are 4 ways of dispersion of fruits and seeds. One is by wind, the one is animals, by water, by bursting. As you can see in the figure, the seeds of fruits that disperse by wind are example milkweed, horror, and Monara Kudumbia. Those are the examples for the seeds and fruits that is dispersed by the wind. And the seeds dispersed by the animals are Tuttiri, Nagadarana, chili, papaya, jack. Those are the examples. The seeds that dispersed by water, water lily, coconut, arecanut. By bursting is happen in rubber and kudalu. They are the examples for the each dispersion method. And as the pollination methods, you have to keep in mind what are the adaptations of fruits and seeds to disperse by these methods. Let's move into the wind. By the wind, the fruits or seed that is dispersed by the wind has hair-like structures as shown as this figure, and also some of fruits consist wings-like structure. For the horror, it consists wing-like structure, and the seeds are also light-weighted and they can float on the air and also they consist large number of seeds at one time. And the second method is animals. The fruit or seeds that dispersed by animals has some sticky seeds, or some consist hooks like structure, and some of them has fleshy edible parts, and some seeds are very cheatable. Some seeds has cheatable structure or patterns to cheat other organisms. And the next one is by water. The fruits or seeds that disperse by the water has fibrous pericarp that can float on the water, and some of them consist air-filled shells like lotus. After fruits and seed dispersion, the seed should have to grow on the soil, in the soil. To the grow or germination of the seeds, there should be a viability of seed, air, water or moisture, and the optimum temperature. Even though these factors are fulfilled, some seeds do not germinate. It is called dormancy. For the dormancy, it may cause embryo not matured, impermeability of testa to water and oxygen. And for extra knowledge, there are two ways of germinating seed. One is epigeal, other one is hypogeal method. As you can see in the figure, the epigeal method happen in the dicot plants. The hypogeal method is happen in monocot plants. After the reproduction of the plant, let's move into the reproduction of human. First, we have to know the under the sexual reproduction of human. First, we have to know what is puberty and secondary sexual characteristics. The secondary sexual the puberty means the sexual maturity or attaining adolescence. It is the puberty. Both males and females also attain puberty. When they are attaining the puberty, males can see some external feature because of effect of testosterone hormone. We can see growth of penis and testes, growth of facial and body hair, muscle development, voice break because of the development of larynx, and the testes start to produce sperms, and shoulders also get widened. In the female, they also appear secondary sexual characteristic because of the effect of estrogen. Their breasts develop and body hair growth, and menstrual cycle begins and hip get widened. Let's move into the male reproductive system. The male reproductive system consists several parts. The first main and major part is testis. This is the testis, oval shaped testis. Over the testis there is a epididymis, and from the epididymis there is a vessel. It is called vas deferens. The vas deferens open into some glands there are seminal vesicles and the prostate glands. Then after this, after passing these glands, it consists a tube-like structure. It is the urethra. Around the urethra, there is a muscular structure. It is called penis. Keep in mind the structure of the reproductive system. The sperms are produced in the testes because of the involution of testosterone hormone. These produced sperms can temporarily store in the epididymis. Right? The structure of the sperm is the unicellular cell. It is a single cell and it has elongated shape. It consists head, neck, body and tail. There are 4 parts: head, neck, body and tail. The head consists nucleus that carries 23 chromosomes, and the body consists large number of mitochondria to provide the energy to float in the female reproductive system, and there is a end part consists tail. The female reproductive system consists ovary, fallopian tube, uterus, cervix and vagina. If the sperm is entered to the female reproductive system, it should be fertilized in the fallopian tube. It is an exam question. It should be fertilized in the fallopian tube. I think you might know the ova or egg has 24-hour lifetime, but the sperms has 72 hours lifetime. During that period, if the sperm and ova is fertilized, it can cause the development of embryo in the uterus. Right? If does not fertilize, it may cause menstrual cycle. The menstrual cycle is a cyclic process. It may last 28 days. 28 days. During menstrual cycle, there are 2 phases occur in the uterus, in the ovary, and there are 3 phases occurs in the uterus wall. The 2 phases occurs in the ovary are follicular phase and luteal phase. This follicular phase is occur within the first 13th day or 14th day, and the luteal phase occurs from 14th day to 28 days. This follicular phase is happen because of the involution of FSH hormone that is secreted by the pituitary gland. The luteal phase is happen with the involve of LH hormone, which is secreted by pituitary gland. Then there are 3 phases occur in the endometrium of the uterus. They are menstruation, proliferation and secretory phase. The menstruation is happen within first 6 days. That means the lining of the uterus wall degrade, and with the blood and epithelial tissues, the lining get degrade and remove from the uterus. And the second phase is proliferative phase. It is the again develop the uterus lining wall. And the third phase is secretory phase. The menstrual phase may last first 6 days. From the second day to 30th day, there is a proliferative phase. From the 15th day to the 28th day, it is a secretor phase. There is a most important day, it is the 40th day. It is the day of ovulation happen. The ovulation is the releasing a ova or matured ova from the ovary. This may cause the involution of LH hormone. Right? You have to keep in mind this graph. The 40th day has LH hormone in higher concentration than the FSH, and for the first 40th day has estrogen hormone, and the last 40th day has progesterone hormone. Because when the follicular hormone get stimulate follicles, when they are developing follicles, it secrete estrogen from these follicles. After releasing ova, these parts produce progesterone. Progesterone. Right? This is the menstrual cycle. It is the cyclic process that lasts 28 days. If the fertilize the ovum with the sperm, as I mentioned in this figure, if the fertilization occur in the fallopian tube, it produces zygote. That is the single cell. It consists 26 chromosomes. Ovum consists 23 chromosomes. Sperm consists 23 chromosomes. After get fused, these 23, it consists 46 chromosomes. The single cell zygote undergoes mitosis cell division and form the embryo. This embryo is get implant in the uterus wall. It is called implantation to grow the fetus. After implanting this embryo in the uterine wall, this embryo grows into the fetus like this. When fetus is grown, the fetus get nutritions and oxygen from the mother, and the excretory products and carbon dioxide are released from fetus to mother. This material exchange is happen via the placenta. Placenta attached into the umbilical cord. But the blood of the mother and blood of the fetus doesn't mix together across the placenta. Sometimes the viruses or microorganisms also can pass through the placenta to the fetus. This fetus develop about 280 days in this uterus to grow complete human or complete baby. There are some most important changes take place in 3rd month. The fetus take human form and develop nails and male female reproductive organs during 3rd month. When they are attaining to the 4th month, their skeleton is developed. When they are attaining to the 5th month, the mother can feel movements of the fetus as well as heartbeat. When the 6 months come, the eyebrows, eyelashes also grow in the fetus. The last part of this lesson is sexually transmitted diseases. there are four diseases you have to learn: AIDS, syphilis, herpes, and the gonorrhea. AIDS and syphilis are caused or AIDS and syphilis can get from the virus infection, and the herpes and the gonorrhea can be infected by bacteria. These are the things that we have to learn during this lesson. Let's